You don't have to read my article. You can listen to it. Maybe it's too hot and you just can't sit and focus, or you decided to have a sofa day. Or are you like me and love to listen to stories and articles and podcasts while you do something else? This audio is really a video that you can listen without watching. But if you like visuals, I've added a few images for you. This article is about my 10 days of art in Paris and London, about museum visits, long walks, and no scrolling, which was kind of a new thing for me. So it was 10 days of no news, and that was such a pleasure. And just enough time on the phone to take photos, confirm reservations, check out maps. And it was one of the best breaks I've had in a long time. This trip had one purpose: art. I wasn't trying to see everything. I wanted to spend time with a few artists whose work inspired me for many years, and to meet a few artists that I did not know or had not seen their works in person. So, Paris first. I've always thought of Paris as a feminine and beautiful and artistic place. My 3-day trip to Paris started during the heat wave. Thankfully, I missed the hottest days, but it was still pretty hot. Most mornings started with an early walk along the Seine on my way to a museum or some other spot. And one morning I had the Tuileries Gardens almost to myself before the crowds arrived and the heat took over. It was such a pleasure. I took lots of photographs and had the best time. I visited Caligrane, the wonderful paper store and gallery where you can buy exquisite paper jewelry, handmade paper, and notebooks. Papier Royal was another special stationery spot. And of course, I had to do a quick visit to Galerie Lafayette and Merci, where I had a fantastic cappuccino and a cake. Most of my meals were at museum cafes or quick stops along the way. But the one I had the most fun with was my dinner at l'Avant-Comptoir du Marché. This was not a foodie trip. It was just too hot to focus on food. So I really focused on art, walking early in the morning to get the cool breeze, and very little food. So I actually lost weight in Paris. That has never happened to me. Matisse. The Grand Palais was hosting Matisse retrospective, 1941-1954. And I studied Matisse at school and have always loved his sense of color and playfulness. When I was younger, I was absolutely fascinated with his portraits and his interiors. This retrospective made me fall head over heels over his cutouts. I saw them differently after this exhibition, and I understood the energy in Matisse's colorful paper shapes. I kept thinking about how he moved shapes around until he found the perfect combination. Then there was the story behind them, knowing that he created the cutouts because he could no longer paint. That made me admire his work even more. He never stopped making art. When I finished seeing Matisse's exhibit, I went back to the beginning and saw my favorites again. And that's the one pleasure of visiting a museum on your own. You don't have to explain anything to anyone. You can just stand there in front of a place for, I don't know, 10 minutes or go back, just have a wonderful time. And that's exactly what I did. My next exhibit was Hilma af Klint. It was also at the Grand Palais. And that had a completely different atmosphere. To me, the exhibit was about power of the feminine. Her spiritual symbols, colors, and shapes seemed to quiet the room. I felt as if I had walked into a temple. Of course, the usual people posing for selfies in front of the paintings brought me right back to reality. For a few hours, though, I forgot about everything else. Calder at the Fondation Louis Vuitton. I don't know what impressed me more, the building or the exhibit. I love Frank Gehry's architecture, and this structure is extraordinary. Calder's mobiles and sculptures were made to be shown in this building. At first, the mobiles and sculptures seemed deceptively simple. The longer I looked, the more I noticed the relationships between the shapes and their shadows. With every step back, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. The shadows slowly became as important as the sculptures, and it was absolutely fantastic. Such a wonderful experience. It was also the first time that I saw his circus pieces, the film about the circus pieces, and his wire portraits. I had seen one or two wire portraits, but it was the first time I saw several of the wire portraits, and they're just fantastic. It was absolutely beautiful. The next one was Fondation Cartier, and they had their Exposition Générale, which is part of their 40-year-old collection. I found myself walking through, around, and into Boltanski interactive artwork. It was so much fun. And it was such a pleasure to see William Eggleston's photographs. I hadn't seen his work in a long time. I admire this photographer so much. To me, he is the father of color photography. And then I saw other people's work, and it was just a wonderful exhibit, the Fondation Cartier. I could have stayed there much longer, but I had a train to catch. I decided to take the train to London. London, because it's powerful, exquisite, artistic, and energetic. London is almost like a second home to me. My mother lived there in the 70s, so I'm familiar with the city, but I'm always getting lost. Going to London was a spontaneous idea that turned into a 6-day visit that included art, several personal itineraries designed by London and London, getting lost, trying to get there, wherever it was that I was trying to get to, and somehow I always made it. The Tate Modern had the Frida Kahlo exhibit. I studied her work at school, and I was excited to visit this exhibit, but I came back out, and I didn't feel so fantastic about afterwards because, I thought I was going to see a whole bunch of her work in person, and that was not the case. There were a few of her paintings, and there were a lot of paintings made by other people who were inspired by her or who wanted to honor her. So it was an interesting concept, but not what my expectations were higher, so not what I expected. It was so worth it. Okay, I also saw Tracy Emin's exhibit, and my favorite works were a group of tiny paintings that she called my major retrospective, and this was lovely because they were very intimate, very small paintings, and it was, I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 of them, and it was such a lovely contrast to her huge paintings in the other rooms. I really enjoyed that. At the Tate Britain, my favorite museum in London, I spent the morning with a lovely friend from Edinburgh seeing Whistler's paintings, and that was worth my trip. My friend and I wandered through the galleries, talking about paintings, catching up, and just having a wonderful time. Hervin Anderson's work was there, and it was the first time that I have ever seen his work, and I was floored by it. I loved his landscapes and his Barber paintings. When I finished that exhibit, I went right back to the beginning, just like I did with the Matisse, and I looked at a few of them again, and they're absolutely wonderful. I went to the Wallace Collection for the first time, and I visited the Quentin Blake Center. The Wallace Collection made me think it would be fantastic to plan a trip to London just to see the houses and mansions turned into museums. And illustration is becoming a big part of my life, and so I couldn't miss the new Center for Illustration in the Angel area, Quentin Blake Center for Illustration. If you like illustration, you must visit it. It's a really lovely museum. It's small, intimate, just perfect. So wandering in London, the weather in London was cooler, so I walked everywhere. Getting lost was a theme. As always, those wrong turns became some of the best parts of my day. I walked through different neighborhoods. I had lunch at the Borough Market and finally found the Winchester Palace, which is an old medieval structure, or part of a structure that I had been wanting to see for ages. And of course, I got lost trying to find it. Now, here's the thing. I was here, and Google Maps sent me here. And all I had to do is walk 2 blocks this way, and I would have found it. So I walked for about 45 minutes looking for it. But it was great because I got to know the area even more. And so I had lots of fun. I also finally went to the Bankside Power Station, which is now a shopping center, but I've always wanted to see that structure because I had seen it in many of my murder mystery films made in the UK. So this trip reminded me how much I enjoyed slowing down. looking closely and letting curiosity show my way. I came home inspired and so happy.